Hello and welcome to this episode of AI in the Enterprise. I wanted to come back and talk about where we are, particularly in the COVID-19 pandemic stage around AI in the enterprise. And to do that, I want to pick on someone I lean upon quite a bit to actually have conversations with around the progression of artificial intelligence and its applicability in the real world. And to do that, I've asked to join today a colleague, Sri Ramanathan. Sri, welcome and thank you for joining.
Always a pleasure to be here with you, Sanjay. Thank you.
Sri and I actually share many things in common. One of the things we spent some time on, just so you get to know Sri a little bit outside of his work in artificial intelligence, is he's got a passion for dogs. And we recently acquired a puppy, and he was helpful in sort of at least educating me a little bit on that. But Sri, tell us a little bit about the work you do around service dogs. And I know that how committed you are to that whole effort.
Well, Sanjay, that's right. It's a passion of mine. I love dogs. I've grown up with them all my life. And I spend a lot of time training dogs whenever I can. And I currently have a 4-year-old, golden retriever. He's actually an English cream white golden retriever, who's very well trained. But if there's a negative there, is that he's not as responsive to other people as he is to me. So it's still training is a lifelong thing, but it's one of my passions. Yes.
Fantastic. I know we could spend time on that. We recently were cajoled into acquiring a first puppy ever by our 2 young kids. And Sri, your advice input in that process has been fantastic and unbelievable. I want to change gears a little bit now that we have a sense for you and what you do when you're not worrying on AI problems and trying to resolve them in the real world. I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you're always working at these interesting things. I always enjoy talking to you. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on now.
Well, the current suite of products, some of the more interesting ones is a natural language understanding hybrid pipeline that uses a combination of semantics, linguistics, and best of breed state-of-the-art models from the open source world to truly take text of any size, shape, or form and convert that into meaning, right? So in other words, taking data that's fundamentally unstructured and converting it into perfectly structured data that we can then incorporate back into a lot of enterprise workflows.
And structure, you use the word structure, but for those of you that don't work day to day in structured data, you're talking about the fact that when you have data that you know what it is and what the field is and what it says and what it implies and what it means, you would think of that as structured data. When it's just written free form in a sentence, it doesn't have a label to it, doesn't have a range and so forth, then you would call it. Is that kind of in simple language what unstructured data is?
That's exactly right, Sanjay. You're getting in text and we output meaning. We interpret that text and convert it into a structured format that you can then consume very easily. Yes.
Yeah. So in other words, you gave me a financial report that's in Excel. I would think of that as structured data. You write me an essay and tell me here's how the company is doing. I would think of that as unstructured data. And a little bit of what you're talking about is how do I go from the essay to the Excel that I can do some things with.
Exactly, Sanjay. Well put. Yes.
And you use this, it's fascinating the terms you use, but just so I understand it, natural language understanding by now, I think I and most of my audiences kind of fundamentally get, but what's this hybrid pipeline thing you're talking about?
So, within Genpact, within our team, Sanjay, we've got, a significant amount of investment in linguistics, in semantic expressions, and being able to very deeply understand our technology using all of the linguistic rules behind that. And then over the last few years, there've been all of this investment in very advanced deep learning models. For example, Microsoft's MTDNN, Roberta, which is an adaptation of BERT. All of these came from the original Google work, seminal work early last year around language understanding and language interpretation. And so what we've done is we've built an AutoML layer on top of that so that we select the best fit model for you dynamically at runtime to fit your specific application use case. So we've integrated all of these techniques and really hidden them all under the hood so that a lot of business people could start then harnessing this powerful technology to solve their domain specific language problems.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it this way, but I think you'll use the word hybrid now that I understand it. is very meaningful, because what you're saying is, look, there has been an evolution in AI in many different ways of sort of solving for the problem. And the trick is not necessarily in picking which is the one model AI algorithm you're going to use for a problem. It's about actually having a smattering of available options and then dynamically using the right one at the right point. And that's your reference to the word hybrid.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that. And sometimes the simplification is takes the beauty of the beauty out of, I think, what you're saying. And it strikes me that not only is a great solution because it gives you best of the world choice today, but it's actually a much more scalable solution, because we expect new ways of applying AI to continue to come up, and you want a model or you want a mechanism that incorporates those new upcoming things that we haven't figured yet out, but are soon to come.
Absolutely, Sanjay. In fact, it is for that reason that we've created this AutoML framework, because we know that in the world that we're operating in AI, the state of the art is very rapidly changing. It's like the laws of physics change every 3 months, And so we, have this need to continue to innovate and use the latest and greatest under the hood, but exposing the same consistent AutoML and other APIs on top of that, so that customers continue to get the best of both, right? Yeah.
Fascinating. And where you, by the way, I understand that you've just shipped it, or you're about to ship it, or what's?
That's right. We went GA last week, and it's in process being uptaken. Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well done. Okay, so Sri, listen, that's fascinating. Unfortunately, it's very theoretical. How do I take all that kind of seminal piece of work you referred to coming out of Google and all these extrapolations and extensions you've done to it? Where do I apply it in the enterprise? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sanjay. So one canonical app that we've built on top of this is called the virtual email assistant. And really what it does is it automates, the flows associated with email. For example, in a contact center where you have a huge volume of email coming in, and you have to automate the way the email is processed, understood, extracting the intents and entities out of it, kicking off enterprise workflows and responding to those emails, so to speak, in an automated way, right? So this application called the virtual email assistant lets you at scale, automate the way email is processed. So that's one example of a real world.
And you use the word process, but Sri, let me ask you this. Are you referring to a scenario where the set of inbound emails coming in any line of business, orders that need to be inputted, claims that need to be adjusted, supply chain forecast demands need to be adapted, and they're coming through an email, and in today's world, you or one of our colleagues, I would be reading them, understanding that, and then actioning something. And you're using the word process, but you're saying you want to do all those things electronically, automatically.
That's right, Sanjay. You're right. You actually, I think, opened up the covers a little bit. Exactly. You have to understand the email. You have to know the intent you're looking for. You have to know what we call entities that you're interested in, that you extract and take out. And then there's a standard enterprise workflow behind that in terms of what you do with what you now know. And then we give you tooling to implement all of this and deploy this. Yeah. So
what's an example of it? Like, give me an example where you're putting this into play.
Great. So you have a customer or a client, for example, and they are getting a lot of emails with contract-related changes. So pertaining to a specific customer ID and a contract ID, there are a number of products within the contract whose pricing has to be changed. There's a pricing change email. This could be a fairly complex email that today a human being looks at, reads, understands, and then go and acts on it. He logs into a third-party system and he does something. So what we can now do is automate the part where the email is received and, within double quotes, understood, right? And the data that the process flow needs from that email, to give you the tools to extract those. And then once that happens automatically, you then plug that into your existing workflow, right? So you can have the human now working on much more productive tasks, right, and higher order tasks, and you can automate a lot of the regular processing.
I mean, it strikes me that a lot of the kind of the grunge work associated with opening up Outlook, reading up through your emails, taking kind of core and basic steps and actioning them, is now possible to be completely automated using artificial intelligence. And I think what you're saying is that allows me the opportunity to start working on higher level problems around that. It also strikes me that what you're talking about is very relevant in today's age. I mean, both you and I are sheltered in place right now, and that's the world we're currently living in with the pandemic. But I would imagine email volumes are going up. I'm assuming there's chats and WhatsApp, and so how broadly applicable is this, and how large is the problem set you're going after?
Well, Sanjay, this year there will be, if we didn't have COVID, we'd have 300 billion emails going out annually. With COVID, I think the volume of emails has gone up a lot. And then you've got messaging channels, which have traditionally always been over 100 billion messages a day, right? So given COVID, that traffic has also significantly gone up. So it's an imperative to work on, I think, automating the processing of these additional volumes, even more so now in terms of statistics. So the volumes are pretty large, Sanjay, and I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the things I'm consistently and repeatedly hearing from the chief digital officers, chief information officers I speak with, few things. Number one, I think most people will tell me that COVID-19 has been the first real honest test of the digitization, because everyone thought they were 1 on 10 or 9 on 10, and they had all these internal scores and all this other stuff. But this is the real world test. You're on the same playing field as everyone else, and how fast you go to work from home, what level of productivity you get to, and how many days, and then what percent of your business you continue to sort of carry on, are all big drivers and kind of allow you to get a very publicly viewable sense of what your digitization is. I think the other thing that's coming out is that those companies that are able to scale quickly, that are able to adapt fast, that are able to deal with these changing environments are obviously coming out ahead. And it strikes me that what you're talking about is, if we can take important chunks of work that in a work from home pandemic, sort of disturbed environment, can then be automated so that you keep the cash tills ringing, that you keep the supply chain moving, that you keep the commerce engine functioning, that in fact that has a very large bearing on kind of the long-term trajectory of that business and the inherent scalability in the business model. And fascinating to hear that you're tackling some really important problems and really critical, but all the more important for where we are today. But that was a great conversation. I almost don't want to get off topic, but is there anything you would add? I mean, you are closer to AI than many of us, certainly much more than me. What else can we look to in the future? I recognize we're not there today, but what would be next in your mind?
Well, Sanjay, I think that's another fairly fascinating question. I think it depends on the domain you're looking at. I mean, I think one of the things that's happening, for example, is there's a maniacal focus now on healthcare and how we can accelerate the application of AI to healthcare, right through, the patient management process, the patient life cycle, how we can diagnose problems much earlier in the life cycle, where it's dramatically easier to address issues, after the fact. And so that's one big focus area, encompassing all of these things, encompassing obviously conversational AI, encompassing language processing, and encompassing computer vision. So all of these things, I think, will be areas that we can expect to see a massive amount of investment in, all for the good of humanity. So it's a very positive thing. Yeah.
Well, it's clear to many of us that coming out of the COVID-19 situation, the use, adoption, and scalability of AI is going to go through the roof. We see a lot of demand, a lot of interest, and a lot of engagement. And I'm thankful to you and your team, Sri, and your colleagues and your associates around the world for the work we do. Thank you for joining us today. Good luck with everything you're doing, and we'll speak soon. And I'm going to turn to my audience and say thanks for joining. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Sanjay.